we might never see a flying coaster built ever again. Now, this is a bold statement to make, but it actually might just be true, because we're just not seeing many flying coasters these days, and it doesn't seem like any theme parks want to build one. But why? Why is the flying coaster suddenly dead? And why might we never see one built ever again? Well, let's find out. Before we get into why theme parks aren't building flying coasters, let's briefly run through the history of the flying coaster. The flying coaster was first successfully introduced with Stealth at California's Great America. This coaster was built by Vekoma and opened in 2000. This was the first successful flying coaster, and then B&M would go on to make their own version of the design, with Air at Alton Towers being their first one and opening up in 2002. B&M would then go on to sell 11 different flying coasters, but they have not built one since 2016. Now, I've had the pleasure of riding both Nighthawk at Carowinds and Manta at SeaWorld Orlando. Manta is a pretty decent ride. It wasn't my favorite, but it definitely wasn't bad at all. It was decently forceful and really smooth too. And I enjoyed it, but it definitely wasn't a standout attraction whatsoever. And Nighthawk is the worst coaster I have ever ridden in my life. I've ridden 85 different roller coasters. Nothing has even matched the just how bad this coaster is. I mean, Nighthawk is basically everything that Manta's not. It's rough, it's forceless, it's boring and painful. And Manta looks cool. This doesn't. So before I get myself carried away, basically, I don't like Nighthawk, okay? So I feel like the general consensus is that flying coasters are okay, but they're not great. And they do serve their purpose. Now, the last B&M flying coaster was in 2016, but Vekoma has actually manufactured one as recently as 2020. But we have not seen one since. So it's been 4 years since we've seen the last flying coaster. So why are these parks not building flying coasters? Well, there are 3 reasons why these parks are avoiding flying coasters. Starting off with reason number 1. Guest experience. Flying coasters are infamously not the easiest on your stomach. And if you have ridden one, you know what I mean. And there have been a lot of times where guests have gotten sick on flying coasters. And theme parks don't want a park full of sick guests, because sick guests are not happy guests, and theme parks want to keep people as happy as possible. In addition, these coasters look kind of unnatural compared to your average roller coaster. This could deter some guests because they think it's either A, going to be uncomfortable, or B, going to be too scary or too frightening for them to have an enjoyable experience. Not to mention how you sit staring at the ground when you stack on the brake run of a B&M flying coaster. And this is not a comfortable experience at all. And luckily when I rode Manta, they only had 2 trains running that day, so it didn't stack forever. But imagine if you stacked for like 2 to 3 whole minutes in the flying position like this. Yeah, that's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be even worse if you don't feel good. And that is a common occurrence after riding a flying coaster. So basically, theme parks are avoiding flying coasters because they're not really enjoyable experiences for a lot of guests. And they want as many guests as possible to enjoy a certain attraction, because they put a whole lot of money into the roller coasters they build. And flying coasters are not cheap. Moving on to reason number 2. These rides are some of the most complicated rides on the planet. The trains these flying coasters use are just so technologically advanced that if I even attempted to explain to you how they worked, I would thoroughly embarrass myself. So most roller coaster trains are fairly simple. It's just a relatively simple locking and unlocking mechanism with a sensor to make sure that the restraint is properly locked and working. Now obviously, I'm simplifying things, but compared to the flying coaster trains, these things are as simple as dirt. And as you probably guessed, these complicated trains come with a lot of problems. And as always, those problems can often lead to a decent amount of downtime. And when a coaster goes down, it makes the guest experience just a little worse. And here's another weird problem that I found with these trains. So, since these trains are very complex and have a lot of electrical components, these trains can't really get wet. Unlike most roller coaster trains that can get as wet as the rain will get them. So these trains can't stack on the brake run when it's raining, because the electronics on the train will just get soaked, and could lead to some more problems. And this was just something kind of weird I noticed, and I want to share that with you guys, because I thought it was kind of cool. But the issues with these trains are not done yet. On top of that, we have another issue that comes with flying roller coasters, and that is port capacity. These restraints are cumbersome to check, and on top of that, flying coasters have a lot of moving parts, which makes unloading and loading a new train take even longer. And the cumbersome restraints and all the moving parts all culminate to a longer line and port capacity. And port capacity is something that theme parks do not want, and it just makes it easier for theme parks to avoid flying coasters, because they don't want to deal with the issues or the port capacity, downtime, maintenance, all of that comes with the flying coaster. They'd much rather go for something else. Which brings me to my third and final reason why theme parks are avoiding flying coasters. And that is, there are simply better options out there. Think hypers, launch coasters, gigas, the list goes on and on. I mean, why would you build a flying coaster when you can build an intimate launch coaster that's going to be way better, more popular, better capacity, more reliable? I mean, why wouldn't you build the intimate launch coaster? The flying coaster is going to have more problems, more downtime, it might even cost more. And you're getting a model that's dying out, and is just not going to be nearly as popular as a launch coaster per se. Think about the extra maintenance they have to do on those trains. Those things are really complicated, as I said before. It's not going to be easy to just take those trains apart, and to be honest, it's just none of this is really worth building a flying coaster. And there's really not too many redeeming qualities of a flying coaster that will make it better than a hyper or anything else. And I think parks are realizing that, and they're just going with other stuff. And to be honest, I don't blame them at all. I think they totally should be doing what they're doing right now. And if I owned or managed a theme park, I would avoid flying coasters too. Because, in my opinion, they're just not worth it. And to be honest, I think the only way the flying coaster could, quote-unquote, come back from the dead is if there was a complete redesign of the flying coaster. And we saw Vekoma try to do this, but they haven't sold another flying coaster since. So, I don't think it worked. Like, they would have to fundamentally change the entire flying coaster and make it super comfortable, super reliable, a whole lot less problematic, and then, maybe just then, the flying coaster could come back from the dead and could become a popular roller coaster model once again. Because if flying coasters were problem-free, they could actually be pretty good for marketing and everything. They look really cool. It's a unique concept, like, oh, I'm flying, that's something new. And it's not like your average roller coaster, which is great for marketability. And you know, I love talking about marketability. So, to recap, basically, there are better options than flying coasters. And it makes a whole lot of sense why theme parks are avoiding flying coasters entirely. It's just not worth the trouble. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a like. And if you want to see more videos like this, then hit the subscribe button. And check out some of my other theme park theories. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.